Hey everybody, I'm Wayne. Welcome to the channel. Hopefully you recognize some of what I was just attempting to do right there as a style of rhythm. To my knowledge, Sam Bush would have to be the person who introduced this whole half beat, funky, taking the mandolin rhythmically, to places that I think he was the first one to explore. And it sure is fun to do. And even if you don't think you're ever going to play music that would, lend itself to this approach, it can just help you to develop technique with the mandolin and to play with a really free spirit when you listen to what he does with this kind of thing rhythmically. And if it isn't something that you're just able to somewhat intuitively begin to try to do, I'll try to break this down into different components, which is a really weird thing to do. I'm not sure that Sam would have ever taken it through this process. I feel like it probably just kind of started coming out because he's, the most rhythmic person probably in the world. Definitely my favorite rhythm player of all time. But anyway, I'm going to start with trying to break this down. It's a great place to start with just an A chord that we're going to play as really like a power chord. We don't have a third at all in the chord. When I'm playing this parallel fifth, if you listen to that if you listen close, the bottom D string is just kind of muted. Not because I want it to be, but my finger's not really big enough to play all four of those strings. The same thing's happening with the top G string. Even a little buzz there. But in the context of what we're going to play, it's totally not about having those notes be clean. This is just such a great power chord because it's just the 1 and the 5. And then another 1 and 5. So just by staying on that one chord, we can break down somewhat the components of what's happening here. We're starting out with a push or a slide, whatever you want to call that, from the first fret, kind of accenting, trying to get as throaty of a sound as we can on the low strings of the mandolin. And then a lot of what happens is just rhythmic. It's just the sound of the pick on the string. Then you can see that upstroke. And then muting with these three fingers, or at least these two, middle finger and ring finger. You could just practice that to get these elements or these components. I like to use that word to get these three things down because it's really a combination of these that make a lot of this happen. So I'm going to fill in that space musically that's still left there. You can see it's just a rhythmic thing, not with any chord quality at all that I'm playing in that hole. Really like a kind of just the top string and then all the way through rhythmically. So a lot more than that is happening with what I was playing on the front of this video. But if you can get these components to really just kind of come out and feel good, it's okay to change it. You're going to have to turn it into something that feels good for you because nobody can do this except Sam in his way. And my interpretation of it ends up being something different because rhythmically we all kind of feel things in different ways. It's definitely I'm influenced by him. I can't do this on that level, not by any stretch. Here we're going to a D7 chord. We're going to play a 1-4-5 progression. If you're not familiar with this chord, I have a video that kind of teaches the 7 chords and how to get to each, or a kind of a formula to build these chords. But for today, we're talking about rhythm. There's the same thing. Push, down, up with a mute. Then my rhythmic fill in. A. For the E chord, let's do this. Another thing that I'm borrowing from Sam Bush. You may remember him playing that chord in White Freightliner, if you ever heard their Newgrass Revival's arrangement of that tune. He plays this E7. It's kind of a weird position to get used to, and we're going to pedal or hammer on, whatever you want to call that, into the major third of the chord. From the G note would be the minor third of the E. So we're using that note to push into the major third. And again, there's that trademark thing that he does. Back to the A. You can see me embellish there again. Flirt with that minor third. This time the G note up on the E string at the 3rd fret. Really fun stuff to do. And again, if you're not going to play this in the context of the band that you're in, it still doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, because it's a lot of times hard just to make yourself want to practice your bluegrass rhythm. I like to do that with recordings that to play along with albums to practice bluegrass chops. I've done quite a bit of that during the pandemic because we're not playing gigs, and when I'm not doing that, just physically you get rusty, especially playing rhythm. If all you do is sit around and play fiddle tunes or work on scales and that type of fretboard study, you could, go for really long periods of time and never work on rhythm playing that's so important. And this, even though it's really different, it's not traditional bluegrass at all. It just connects you to the mandolin in this rhythmic kind of way that makes it more likely that you spend time working on that. The muting of the mandolin, how much of the chord that you want to hear, a thick chop versus one that doesn't have much chord. All of those same things that you've experimented with in a bluegrass chop, you're going to look into those things as well with this really fun halftime, cool mandolin rhythm. Okay, so now we're going to get a little piece of Sam. I sure didn't want to play this clip before I tried to break any of this down, but here's definitely one of the cuts that inspired me to learn some of this. So there you have it. That's kind of the best, I think. Go back through the video, work through the components, and try to get some kind of a feel for this halftime stuff. Okay, have fun. Hit the subscribe button if these videos are a help. Thanks.